All right. So to kind of kick us off here, hi everyone. My name is Natalie Frank. I am the co-founder of the Rising Tide Society and the head of community at HoneyBook, and I want to welcome you to this Global Tuesdays Together event. For those of you who are brand new to Rising Tide and who we are, we're a community of small business owners and creative entrepreneurs who unite in the spirit of community over competition. We have over 400 local chapters led by extraordinary volunteer leaders, co-leaders, and chairs. And I mean extraordinary. They are the best of us. Our Facebook group has over 77,000 community members, and it's facilitated by yet another incredible team of online moderators. We provide educational resources released almost daily through different channels, including our blog posts, webinars like this one, templates, monthly downloadable guides, and so much more. All of it provided completely free to the community, because we believe that when creatives rise, our entire world is changed for the better. When small business owners are empowered to thrive, we are all better for that. And so that really is at the heart of everything that Rising Tide is and does, and why we work so hard to create incredible resources just like this one and give you access to brilliant minds like Danait and Jay, who are joining us today. So let's rewind to why we're doing this. Back in March, it became very clear that it would no longer be safe for so many of our chapters to meet in person due to the pandemic. And so we decided to change course and to start hosting a Global Tuesdays Together each month online. And y'all showed up. So we've decided to keep this going and are so excited to be talking today about something that frankly is really relevant in this season. We're talking about booking and sales strategies through this lens of 2020, through this season that all of us as small business owners are walking through right now. And this season is a season of intense change and pressure that many of us are feeling. We are in a global pandemic. We're experiencing a civil rights movement, and we have to be cognizant of how to adapt and be sensitive in our strategies in order to grow and sustain our businesses. And ultimately, like we talked about, therefore change our communities and our clients' lives. And so I'm not the one you came here to listen to. And so I'm really excited to be welcoming up two extraordinary human beings that I've had the pleasure of getting to know long before this webinar and in different capacities. And I'm really excited for you to get to know if you don't know already. And so I'd like to introduce them to you. First, I'm going to start with Danait Behre. Danait is a brand and messaging strategist on a mission to help women-led brands achieve next-level growth that allows for options, freedom, wealth, and world-changing impact. Danait hosts weekly live videos diving into messaging, branding, and sales that are a mix of thought-provoking and actionable steps to help you take your next right step. And you can connect with Danait over on Instagram at Danait BG. Kate, if you can drop a link to her Instagram in the chat, that would be amazing. I love following her. She is the best, and really, really excited, Danait, to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. And next up, we have Jay Clouse. Jay is the creator of Freelancing School, which provides the training and community to help people make a living freelancing. Jay also hosts The Creative Elements, a podcast for creatives in the trenches of building their businesses. You can connect with Jay on Twitter at Jay Clouse, or sign up for his weekly newsletter for creatives at jclouse.com. We'll also make sure to drop those links into the chat for you. Jay, welcome. It's so good to see you again.
Yay, a podcast that Natalie has been on.
It's true. Yeah, we did a podcast release not long ago. We talked about community, which was awesome. And Jay, your sister is the one who does the illustrations, right?
Yes.
For your podcast?
Yes.
They're incredible. So like creative family all around in the Clouse household.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to have a reason to collaborate with your sibling on something.
Yeah, it is. My sister's a psychiatrist, so maybe we need to find a way to collab. Mental health, mental wellness. Who knows? Maybe you'll inspire a whole amount of content beyond this. But I'm just so excited tonight, Jay. Thank you both for joining us today. We want to jump right in, but before we even do that, I want to preface to everyone watching this. We want this to feel like it would feel if you were at an in-person Tuesdays together. And so what that means is we want the chat to be a place where you are actively asking questions, or as we're talking about something, if there is a way that you want to contribute to the conversation or share something that you've experienced, I want to welcome that as well in this forum. So please use that chat. I will have it pulled up and we'll be monitoring it throughout our Q&A session. And we have some questions prepared to kick us off, but our hope is to really answer your questions. So if there are things you're struggling with in this season and you would love input from our speakers, please feel free to drop it in the chat. let's kick it off with kind of an opening question. And I'd love to hear from both of you, Danait and Jay. Why are we talking about booking and sales right now? Why is it important to be having this conversation about booking and sales, especially in this context of maybe looking at it through a new light or a new lens?
Well, I would say it's important to talk about booking and sales all the time as a business owner. So full stop. That's why we're talking about it today. But even more specifically, I know that this is a tough season for a lot of business owners. All of my clients are business owners. My students are business owners. I'm a business owner. And so the business owner within us is saying, I need sales and I need new client bookings. But as creatives, we're generally pretty empathic as well. And the empaths within us may be saying, but what if other people are hurting too? I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be salesy. And that might hold us back from really putting ourselves out there and helping people who genuinely need it and are able and interested in paying for it. So that's my take on it. But of course, very interested to hear what Danait has to say as well.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out that as entrepreneurs, we have that empath side to us where we feel like, oh, should I be talking about this? Should I be selling to people right now? And I think that, like Jay said, sales is the lifeblood of a business. And so it's something that we need to talk about all the time. But I think it's also important to talk about it now because it allows us to shift the conversation a little bit around what we've always seen sales as. We've always seen sales as something that's icky, really pushy. We're trying to persuade people to do something. And I think the mindset shift that's happening now, or that needs to happen, is that sales is a form of service and you're a problem solver as a business owner. And when you make that shift, there's a difference in how you show up because now you're solving problems. You're not persuading, you're not pushing people into a specific thing. We're not trying to be like, hey, get this thing. People are already looking for what we have to offer. And when we start thinking of ourselves as problem solvers, we're now solving the problems that people already came to the table with, as opposed to trying to push them into a service or product that they're not even looking for to begin with. And so I think, especially during the season when we're feeling that pressure and feeling like, I don't want to talk about this. I feel like people are probably going through a hard time. We also have to understand that they're probably already looking to have a solution to their problem. And so it's important for us to talk about that so we can figure out better ways and more ethical ways to show up for them and serve them in this season.
I love that. Go ahead.
I love that you brought up mindset because, yesterday I bought something from Amazon. I bought an Elgato Cam Link. And I didn't feel like Elgato or Amazon was pushing me to buy something that I didn't want to buy. I bought it because I sought it out and I needed it. And now I'm going to be glad that I did. And the cash that I traded over for it is well worth it because it's solving a problem that I have. And the same is true for service-based businesses. For a long time, I literally had, those stickers that you can print out to put on envelopes for addresses and stuff. I took one of those stickers and I put it on my wallet and I just wrote the words, "Why are you buying this?" And one, it was really great because it helps you realize things that you don't need to buy. But two, what I wanted to do every time I reached for my wallet, I literally wanted to explicitly tell myself the story that I was subconsciously telling myself as to why I was trading money for this thing. And we're constantly, justifying and rationalizing why we're buying a thing. And we do it in good spirits almost all of the time. And if someone's going to hire you as a freelancer or creative or service provider, they're doing it because they're telling themselves this is worth the trade and we shouldn't feel bad about that.
Yeah. I love that we're 10 minutes in and the gold nuggets are just dropping left and right. So good. So good. Well, look, we're talking one thing that, and this is not in our pre-scheduled questions, but I'm just going to go with it. We brought up problem solving. Danait, you raised this thing about we're solving problems as business owners. And Jay, you're talking about the rationalization of exchanging money for services or goods. When it comes to this season that we're in right now, have the problems shifted, or should we be tuning into our audiences in a different way, our customer base in a different way to meet their needs differently? Are they experiencing potentially different struggles? I saw, for example, and we can get into this question a little bit later, but Jenna here raised one, which is it beneficial to be discounting services for micro weddings? So one problem might be for those in the wedding and event space, there are huge issues happening. How should we be thinking about those shifting problems that our customers are feeling? And should we be adapting sales strategies as a result? I'd love some insight there.
That is a really great question. And for me, it's always about going back to the customer, because sometimes as business owners and creatives, we have all the ideas. We're like, I have a list of them somewhere. And sometimes in a season like this, it might feel like we need to shift what we're doing. It feels like, oh, maybe they might not need this anymore. But I think it's really important to go back to our customers and see what they need from us. So maybe if they're switching from having these large weddings to something more micro, it means that maybe you show up and serve in that way and figure out, okay, how can I adjust my package without discounting what you already offer, turning it into something that is different, shifting it where you're still being compensated for the work that you're doing in the value that you're providing them. However, shifting it to this micro offering as opposed to maybe doing the full thing. For me, I found that a lot of my clients needed to continue doing the same things that I was offering them in the first place. And they were like, hey, this is a great time for us to work on our branding, to work on our website. And so for me, it was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to change too much here. And then we continue in that way. But I think it's really, really, really important to keep your ear to the ground, really listen, watch what's happening. I think that's so key in sales, is being observant and kind of just seeing like, okay, where are these things headed? Like, what do I think is going to happen? Let me ask some people if this is valuable to them. And showing up in that way, I think it's really, really critical right now.
So I don't know if this is because I'm just a guy and this is how I tend to react to things, but I just take emotion out of like all of my analysis of things. And so I'll basically make two lists. And this is what I recommended to a lot of my clients, some of which are brick and mortar businesses. But I said, these are weird times, but let's start by thinking, what is different and what is the same? And if your clients and their needs are the same, and the only difference is the way that you deliver it, for example, let's take the obvious of like a restaurant or even a grocery store. Has the client need changed? No. Has the constraints for how they receive these things changed? Yes. So, okay, how do we continue to deliver the service that they need and meet them where they are? Because if the client need hasn't changed, but now they're solving that need in a different way than your services, well, what is it about their solution that you weren't providing that they had to seek an alternative? And in some cases, it might be price. It might be that they're hurting and they aren't willing to pay the same price that they were before. I'm also generally not on the discount train unless it buys you a lot of social equity with that person. And usually if I do have a discount, it's noted on the invoice as some sort of line item to show that my value is still this, and I've given you this, but I'm not going to just give you the discount in the term of a new price, because now they're starting to change how they value you. So yeah, I would start with what is different, what is the same, and how do I operate in this new context? And it comes from understanding your customers, your clients, and their needs.
Gold. Can we dive into this discount conversation again? I think that when we're first getting started, and everyone, by the way, everyone watching this is in different stages of business. Some are just getting started. Some have been doing this for 10 plus years. But I think for those of us who can remember back to when we first started, a lot of us felt that pressure to discount right off the bat. That imposter syndrome creeps up, that fear kind of takes hold of the steering wheel of our business. And there can be that tendency when selling to question your worth and your value. Fast forward to this year, 2020, we're in a very, very challenging season. I think for a lot of people that fear is also creeping up. Maybe they're seeing fewer inquiries. Maybe they, are experiencing a slowdown or a mass reschedule event or a lot of postponements. The fear of making ends meet is very, very palatable for our community. And we have seen this depending on industry type. I know for some people, this is the busiest season they've ever had, branding, web amongst that, because the other side of it is a lot of the service-based in-person gatherings and meetups of sorts aren't happening. How do we address that fear, first of all, that creeps up? Do you have any advice for overcoming that when we're facing sales? And then also the second part of my question is, let's talk about the financial strategy of that. Danait mentioned not doing discounts. Jay, I loved the parameters you put around that. I would love to just kind of have space to hear from both of you in regards to how do you make those decisions and what advice would you have for us?
Well, I think the first thing I'll bring up is the best leverage you can have in any negotiation. And when you have a conversation about price, it's a conversation around negotiation. The most leverage you can have in any negotiation is knowing when you're totally willing to walk away. And to know that, you need to think ahead of time. See, what happens in a lot of conversations when you think price is going to be brought up, if you haven't thought through the numbers that you want to propose and where you're willing to walk, you're going to word vomit something. And you don't know what that is if you haven't already thought it. So the best strategy that I come up with is before any call where I think numbers are going to be mentioned, I think through basically a bunch of if-then statements of where I'm going to land on numbers. Here's what I really want to go in and ask for. This is what would make me really excited about it. Here's my floor. Here's, other points of negotiation I will make if it comes to it. Really thinking through that ahead of the conversation so that you're prepared, because clients want to be led in conversations, and all throughout any conversation, they want to be confident that you are somebody that can really deliver and take care of business. We want to work with people who are confident. We want to work with people who seem busy and in demand. And the best way to give that feeling is knowing your value and being willing to walk if they're not going to meet you where you are. Now, I don't like discounts as much as I like to have different levels of and different packages, so to speak, because you never want to reduce the scope so far that they don't walk away with something valuable or useful or something they can put into effect. But if you say, okay, the whole service package that I want to offer is this, and I know that I can break that into these 3 component parts, and so if they can't afford this, I'll propose a smaller scope of this, knowing they'll still get great value and I'm still being fairly compensated.
I really love that approach to thinking through how you want to discount, if anything, is to have those tiers. And I think it really comes down to, at the end of the day, understanding your value, because what I've come to know is that price is rarely the reason why someone does not work with you. It's because they do not understand the value that you provide and you haven't articulated that to them in a way that makes them justify the price point. Because when we exchange money for something, we are saying that if something is $100, what we're saying when we exchange money for that is that this is more valuable than the $100 I have in my pocket. So people are always underpaying for what you have to offer because they feel that the value they're getting is more than what they're paying you. So when we come into a conversation about whether we want to discount or not discount, I think it's really important to understand the value and what you're giving them outside of here's just the benefits and features of what I have. Like, what is the impact of that long term? What does it look like on the back end for them? Like, what are they really getting out of this? And when you come into the conversation knowing that, then you know where you draw the line for that, essentially. And when you know what each part of your process costs you, what value it brings to the customer, then you can have that conversation when if they say, hey, this is too expensive, you can explain to them why this part of your process is part of your process, because you're going to say, hey, this is the value that gives to you, and I can't get you the results you want by cutting this part out. Or if you know that you can still give them that level of experience and that level of results that they're looking for, while also making sure that you are being compensated fairly for what you are doing, then that's something you can do in the moment. Another thing is to allow yourself grace. Like, I don't discuss numbers usually on a consult call because I always say numbers that I don't want to say. And then I'm like, darn it, why did I do that? So I always come back to the table with, hey, like I make that clear in before we get on the call, letting them know that this is just for me to assess what they need and how I can serve them. So if that's something that you can do as part of your process, or what Jay was saying, really being ready with what every package is and having those if-then statements in place before you go into the call. That way you don't undercut yourself, you don't undercharge, and then come out of that conversation being like, wait, what just happened? Because that's usually how it goes.
Another thing I'd add on to that, Danait, is because we have the inherent skills needed to deliver whatever the service is, we undervalue ourselves and think about money the wrong way. Because if you want to charge $500 for the service package, and you look at that and you say, would I pay $500 for that? Of course you wouldn't, because you can do it. Somebody who can't do it is much more likely to want to pay $500. But we get in that head trap a lot. We think like, oh, I can't imagine paying this much money for it. Yeah, because you know how to do it and you've already learned, you've like taught yourself the skill. To so many people, that solution or that service is inaccessible. They have no idea how to begin doing it. They might not even have the equipment so that they can do it. And so you really have to remind yourself of past clients who have just raved about your work. That's the only way I've gotten through that head trap, is just think through like, well, this person was thrilled with that investment. So I know that that is like commensurate with the value that they're receiving, because I fall into that trap all the time personally.
Yeah, that's so true.
This is so good. I know I feel like a broken record, but I see Kate nodding and I'm like, I want to just, I need to rewatch this myself several times a month. This is gold. So good. I love this. Oh, let me see here. We've got any other questions coming in? I want to make sure I'm respecting any questions.
Something else that I'll add on while you're looking at that now.
Go for it, Jay. Yes.
I love having the numbers conversation in real time, because to me, the most success I have with selling is when we have a really productive conversation where I'm asking a ton of questions. I'm learning everything that I could possibly learn about that person and their needs right now. And the last half of the conversation usually goes very, very quickly, because basically I'll say, so it sounds like you need X to happen. And I'll stop and look at them and they'll say, yes, that's what I want. Okay, I've confirmed that I've heard you. I know your problems. Next, you follow up with, okay, I have no doubt whatsoever I can do that for you. Here's the steps I need to do it. Here's the time frame we can do it. I can get started next month. It costs this much. How does that sound? And just leave it there, because you've already had them verbally confirm, yes, the problem that you have identified is a problem that I have. I understand your process. And it just lowers the bar for them to just say yes to get started. And money is just kind of this formality that they need to say, like, can I dig that up somehow? Because it's a story. It's a story that they're telling themselves. Am I willing to pay that much? And ultimately, a few $100s isn't a huge deal if they really believe, okay, this person knows my problem. They're confident they can solve it. I feel confident in them, and I just want them to solve this for me.
Let's dive into that a little bit. So what I'm sensing and what I'm hearing are two very different sales strategies. So one is a relational call followed by maybe a transactional proposal. And another is like a very direct sales pitch. I would love insight from both of you, because I know even in my own experience as a business owner, I lean much more towards a Danait strategy. And I don't know why, but I always have. I always keep it super relational. By the way, I'll send you the proposal after. It was so great to meet you. And then, we kind of go from there. But I would love to know if there's any advice in terms of, for everyone listening to this, how did you find that sales strategy that worked best for you and your personality or your business type, and any insight that maybe you could provide, or even experiences that led you there, maybe mistakes that happened along the way, or, how did you get to the place you are now? Because both of you are very successful. So I'm curious to know how you arrived at the place that you have with your strategy.
I love that question. So my background is actually in sales. I used to do sales psychology trainings for large companies. And so a lot of what I trained was exactly what Jay is talking about, is those like sales pitches. And there is nothing, absolutely not, like those work very well. That's why they teach them all around the world. For me, it was, a lot of it had to do with when I first started my business. I was like very hesitant to be like, hey, do you want to pay this for this service? That's really how it went. But I knew that I was really good at building relationships on a call with people. I was very good at being able to assess what they needed, so that when I sent them a proposal, it felt like a reiteration of our conversation and really something that was personal, and experience was really important to me. So that's kind of why I land in that camp. However, it is important to make sure that you are hitting all of the sales things that you need to in a call to be able to, it shouldn't just be a conversation where you're just like, hey, what's up? Like, nice to meet you. And it's kind of just like a hangout session. It has to be where you're really assessing what it is they need, how you can serve them, what are their pain points, and then really being able to talk to them and kind of like point back to them exactly what you're hearing from them and how your service, like already in the conversation, really telling them, okay, based on what I'm hearing from you, these are the things that you're needing support with, and my service helps you because we dive into X, Y, and Z, and really letting them know before you get off the call that this is exactly the things that I will be able to help you with. And I think that either sales strategy works. I know personally for me, like my close rate is like a 96% doing this strategy. So I know a lot of people feel like, oh, well, that's not going to work because I'm not like pitching them on the call. But it works for me because of the fact that I know that my strength is in being able to build relationships. And since I know that's my strength, I lean into that. Whereas my husband he works in sales, and for him, he is very good at pitching and like very good at like leaning into the like pitch side of something and being able to do that. He's also a great conversationalist. So for him, and there's no emotion attached to money for him. So he's just like, this is the price. Like, are you gonna buy this or not? So he does very well in that. But I think it just really depends on your personality too, and how you show up, and how you can, like, how you know that you can really make sure that the person knows that you can serve them. I think that for me, and also because a lot of my past experience in sales was always very like pushy and like that's how it was in the corporate world, and it wasn't done. And so that's probably why I gravitated away from that, but still using those same sales techniques and tactics while also being able to make it work for you is important. But I'd love to hear Jay's take on this because
Well, I don't think there's I don't think these are at odds whatsoever. I also consider myself a very relational seller. And for me, I don't like working with many clients at a time. And I'm also super picky about what I do. So my process evolved from just willing into existence the projects that I wanted to do. And the best way that I could basically, like, I wanted to create clients as opposed to find clients. And I wanted to create clients with people who I wanted to work with on projects that I wanted to deliver. And they're not standardized. They're usually very unique projects that people don't even know like how to look for a person for. And that's because I just talk with them. And it's usually someone I've known for a good amount of time. I talk with them. I ask them a lot of questions about what's going on for them right now, what their priorities are, what would move the needle for them in their business right now. I would reiterate back the things that I thought were important points that I'm hearing they want to have solved. They have some pain around it, and I feel confident and interested in solving. And when they say, yeah, that's true, if they're self-declaring a problem and I'm saying, well, I can solve that for you, and they're realizing, oh, I could have this problem solved, and this person in front of me can do it, and I've known them for years, and I want to work with them anyway, there's no competition introduced into the equation. And it's a lot easier to have a question about pricing because they're not price comparing. They don't even know how they would go and find a different person for that. So I think I kind of evolved that because the first major part of my business was basically running a mastermind program, and I didn't market it well, and I didn't message it well. And when I was saying, here's what we can do, I'm getting 5 people together and we meet once a week for an hour and we help each other grow our businesses, people were like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that will work for me. And the only way I could get people to take the jump was to have these introductory calls. And I learned I had to ask them a lot of questions about their priorities and what is important for them over the next 3 to 6 months, and then affirm for them, okay, you want to do these things? This program will work for you. That's just the process that I found that worked. And now applying that to general freelance work is very much the same. It's understanding where their head's at, what they're looking for, saying, I can solve that for you. I listened to this podcast one time, and it was like, I think it was Pete Holmes talking about interviewing actors for like an acting role. And he brought up, he's like, you know, anytime you go into an audition, that casting director wants you to be the person that they cast. They want to stop auditioning. They want to find the perfect solution as quickly as possible. So if you know that that person wants to hire you, they want you to succeed, you just need to show up and affirm for them that you are the right answer. And that applies to so many things if you're solving problems for people.
I love that. And it reminds me of my days as a full-time wedding photographer, even in asking that question of, for in a service-based lens, Jay, what I'm hearing is, you know, what would make your wedding photographs unforgettable? And they would go on to tell me what they cared about, where their pains were. You know, well, I never got this photo at my brother's wedding, or we never had this, and they'll start to reveal the pains. And then two things sort of happen. One, I can step in, we all can step in that point and be the solution, like you're saying. And also, which leads me to my next question, we can use that as a vehicle to direct them to the right package that enables them to have the experience they're longing for. So a lot of times I would hear things like, you know, the photographer at my brother's wedding left before the sparkler exit, and there were no photos of the sparkler exit. So what I'm hearing you say is all day coverage really matters to you. And then segue that into the sales part of the process, which sort of leads me to this question here of, what advice could you give people in terms of doing this type of qualitative research on a call in real time as to directing that research towards closing the sale? Like whether it's proposal or on the call, is there any advice that you can give towards maybe good question asking, questions that you ask frequently that you find to be successful, or ways to guide the conversation that could be of benefit to someone listening today?
I love that question. Before I answer that, as a follow-up to the last little bit of what Jay said, I think it's really important to also recognize that, like, that was really important, that he has a service that someone couldn't easily go and replicate and find. So knowing if that's something that you offer is really important, because if you're finding that you have a lot of people who are price shoppers and they're asking around because there's a lot of similarities between your services, really getting to a place or finding things that you can do that aren't offered anywhere else is really important. I am a brand strategist, but I'm confident in my process is unique enough that I'm okay with sending a proposal after the call, because I know Jay had mentioned, like, there is no like competitive research happening if you're like, hey, like, are you ready to move forward or not? So really understanding that and knowing whether there's that room that you have that you're like, I'm pretty confident enough in knowing that. Probably earlier on when I was doing a lot of like very similar things to other people, I probably should have been closing the calls right away before people left. But knowing that, that's really important, and it's something to kind of just know and recognize, so that when you're doing your sales pitch or having those conversations, you can kind of show up in that way. Okay, so to answer the next question, for me, a lot of my calls are, I don't script my sales calls at all. I know I have a questionnaire enough that I know what someone's coming to me for, and I do my research before coming on the call. But really, I let them guide the conversation, because a lot of brand strategy, especially, is very abstract to people. And so when we're having that conversation, I really want to know where their head is at in terms of what is it that they really think brand strategy is, because I know that in my industry, people come to the conversation with preconceptions of what they think it is and what they think they need and so I really just want, and because I'm helping them solve such a kind of broad part of their business, in essence, like with brand strategy, it kind of touches everything that you do. A lot of times people come and they're like, I think I need a website because of XYZ. And so I know that each of our conversations go a little differently. So for me, it is a laundry list of questions where I'm just asking them about their business and what have been their struggles, what have they been trying recently that hasn't been working, why is this the time that they're coming to me to have, like, to do this work together, really trying to dig in. And I let that kind of lead the conversation. So I'm probably not giving you guys the best answer here, but I really let them guide the conversation. And I think it's because you have to know your service at such a deep level that once you understand what it is that you're actually giving people, not just like, I do brand strategy, I know the transformation that I help my clients achieve. So because I know that, I can ask questions in a way that help me see if that's really the transformation that they want. So making sure that I'm tailoring the questions to, like what Natalie was saying, you're asking about what is the end result that they want without really directly like what makes it your wedding photos something that you're going to cherish for the rest of your life. That's asking them what the transformation is, essentially, that they're looking for at the end of working with you. And so if you know your service well enough to know what is the transformation that you give them, then you can start asking those questions right off the bat, asking those from the very first part of the conversation, and making sure that you can then lead them, not in like a manipulative way, but lead them to understanding whether you're the right person for them or not. So for me, that's questions like that. Why is this the right time? What is it that you're really looking for? Why do you think a website will solve that problem? Or why do you think XYZ will solve that problem? Especially if they're looking at it from like, if I see that they're mentioning other people or like, oh, I saw so-and-so's photography, or I saw so-and-so do this, and I kind of want to do the same kind of thing. If you're really trying to figure out what it is that they are essentially looking for is really important to me. So asking questions in that vein has been really helpful in being able to kind of uncover the layers, because a lot of times people come to you with surface level things that they're like, oh, I think I just need this. And really they need some other things. And then you can then direct them to the right packages and services and things that you have available.
That note you kind of ended on there, Danait, is really powerful, because I think one of the best things you can do as a business owner is be so confident in your service and who is a good fit for you that you're comfortable referring clients to other people if they actually solve the problem differently, or the problem that person actually needs solved.
Yes.
Because again, I think we just live in a time where, because we have so much choice around us in all aspects of our life, we have so much anxiety around making the wrong choice. And we want someone that is confident and comfortable helping us feel comfortable in making the right choice for us. And asking questions is like the perfect way to do that. So for me, when I start with somebody, I try to spend the entire time talking about them. I don't talk about my business. A lot of times they're referred to me, so I can kind of, start with some banter and say like, hey, how do you know Brett or whoever referred you? And we'll start there, and I'll say, so what's on your mind? What's going on? And they'll kind of get into their spiel to what led them to probably talking to this mythical Brett person who referred them to me. And I really just thread off of that. I also don't script my calls, because you want to feel comfortable. You want the person to feel like they're really being heard. And so at some point, I'll basically get at the heart of, like, to your point Danait, what is it that you want here? And most business owners want more of something, whether it's customers, followers, revenue, profit. And so if you can show a business owner that you can generate more revenue or decrease their costs or increase their subscribers, that leads to more revenue. And then some of them actually want to play in the realm of vanity a little bit. Like, they may just be looking at a competitor and saying, I want to look like this. Like, their stuff is really good. They're getting a lot of attention. I want to have the same signals that I'm seeing them get. You got to figure out what their motivating force is, and then sort of, again, repeat that back to them and say, okay, so it sounds like you want X to happen. You want to feel comfortable. In my case, when I coach business owners, it's a lot of like, you want to feel comfortable selling yourself, or you want more clients, or you want a website that has these opt-in forms integrated so that you have a sequence that goes out and you build your audience, whatever it is. And again, they'll say yes. And I'll say, okay, we can do that. And then proceed to tell them, how we can do that, get them excited that, okay, this person heard my problem. They helped me better understand my problem. They helped me clarify what I actually wanted, and they have a solution. It's all about making them feel heard, making them feel comfortable, feeling like, okay, I know what I need now. This person understands it. And then the price is kind of secondary if they're that bought into you and the solution.
Yeah. And I would love to add to that. So important what Jay said, like framing that back to them, that is so key. And also recognizing that we do not need to give a laundry list of all the things that are included in a service. Like, that is, I think, okay, so that probably is the secret sauce right there. Okay. Is once they've told you what it is that they want, and you have like drilled down and you're like, this is the heart of what they want for their wedding, what they want for their business, whatever it is, your job is to go through your mind and say, okay, what parts of my service directly address this? And that's all you talk about. The rest is gravy. The rest that they get on top of that, they're probably like, amazing, I'm going to get this and all of that other stuff. Because what we like to do as business owners sometimes is we're like ready to be like, this is all the things I do. I also add this and this is included and you get this. And that's overwhelming because they're like, I really just want this problem solved. Like, this sounds like a lot. Maybe this is too much for me. Like, I don't know if I need this. So once you hear what it is exactly that they want, your only job is to frame back to them what they want and then tell them what parts of your service directly address that. The rest of it they'll see in the proposal and be really excited about the fact that you're giving them all this extra stuff on top of solving their core problem that they had, that they came to you for. And it makes the conversation so much less like you're trying to push stuff on them, and they just feel, like Jay said, heard and listened to, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the person of my dreams. This is exactly what I've been looking for. And everything else on top of that is just an extra bonus that they're like, whoa, I'm so amazed that I get all of this for what you just said.
And the same thing is true of the proposal itself, right? Because if you aren't giving them a number or giving them like, here's the full deliverable and the proposal on the call, even if you are sending a formal proposal, start that proposal by framing again, here's what I know about our conversation so far. Here are the outcomes you want. These are the outcomes we're going to get. Lead with that. And then dive into the actual process and what that means and what you do. Because people, I see this with like copywriters or graphic designers. They don't want to buy a service. They want to buy a solution and an outcome.
Right.
And so you need to show them how you're going to get that outcome. The how of how you do it, they don't necessarily care about. They just want to be confident that you can deliver the what.
Yes, so important. Yes, proposal. Make sure that that's like top of the page, and then everything else. Love that.
This is amazing. All right. Another question here that we've seen, I've seen this question in multiple different groups, and we talked about fear. We've talked about sort of this new lens that a lot of people are kind of looking at marketing their business or looking at selling their service or their product through. I would love to hear from each of you. If you could give one specific tip for our business owners today in how to increase sales right now through the lens of 2020. If you have any advice, a tip, something that you're seeing work better than other things, because I do know that for a lot of folks watching this right now, maybe sales are slow. So what is one bit of advice you'd give to help increase sales in this season?
I would start with my all-time favorite sales strategy that I like so much that I put an acronym around it. Okay. All of our businesses run on word of mouth to some degree. Those words are nice words about you, about your business, and they come from the mouths of people who know you, like you, and trust you already. I call those people your advocates. So in any season, you are best served communicating with your advocates frequently, and then creating new advocates. But I would be willing to bet that you have enough close advocates to you that you could just stay in close contact with those advocates. And then you put into effect this eyes and ears strategy that I have, which both is an acronym and like a really intuitive idea. You want extra sets of eyes and ears for your business out there all the time, talking to potential customers. Eyes means establish your elevator speech, know how you say what you do, and ears, empower your advocates to refer sales. So if you can very succinctly say, I help X do Y, I help this type of client solve this problem, that is short enough that we can remember it. And your advocates will remember those specialized terms. So if I help creatives become comfortable business owners, when my advocates go and talk to a creative, or if I help freelancers learn how to run their business, when my advocates go and talk to a freelancer, they're going to link that person to me. And if that person has a problem that they need solved, they'll say, you should talk to Jay. And you want to use these specific terms because that's what we remember. But ultimately, to get a referral, you need to be the first person to mind when someone is trying to solve a problem with a person. And if you just say, I'm a photographer, I'm sorry, I know 20 photographers. And so for you to be the first person in mind to get that referral, you have to really match the scenario somehow. I'm going to put you in a box, whether you like it or not. That's just what we do. So at least create your own box and give that to the people close to you so they can be productive advocates for you out and about in their daily lives.
I love that. And you're a guy after my own heart, because I love the customer journey and understanding. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the customer journey chart, and so much of what we do is front loaded on like the marketing aspect and getting people into the funnel, as we like to call it, and get people in. And one part that we always forget as business owners is the back end, where the funnel ends and you have these people who have been your customers or who are ongoing customers or whatever the case may be. And we forget that that's what feeds the funnel moving forward. In the beginning, we have to do a ton of but as time goes on, you usually can feed most of your funnel by the people who have been previous customers. And so staying in touch with them is really huge. I am a huge advocate for client retention. If that's the easiest money you'll ever make in your life is client retention, is there a way for you to retain the customers you already have and provide additional services? Is there a way that you can get them into another offering, that you have another tier, or add another thing where it's easier to sell people who have already paid you for something because they're like, oh yeah, I like this person, I'll give them more money. So it's easier to do that. So is there a way that you can retain your current customers, find a way to continue serving them? Or is there a way that you can continue to, and there is a way to have those conversations with them, stay in touch with them, stay top of mind? My husband was telling me the other day about a guy who is a real estate agent, and what he does is he always goes, he like never sleeps. My husband's like, this guy never sleeps. He takes like car windshield wiper fluid and he'll leave it in the driveways of customers that literally just bought a house from him, and leave a little note and said, thinking of you, here, like was just thinking of you. And he'll drive around doing that to all of his previous customers. But he's killing it because those people are always remembering him when one of their friends is like, hey, we're trying to sell our house, or we're trying to buy a house. The first guy that comes to mind is the guy that left stuff on their driveway, regardless of whether they needed that or not. It was just a thought of that, the fact that, you're staying in touch and making those little touch points where you're sending an email, hey, I was thinking of you, just wanted to check in, see how you guys are doing. Even if it's not you selling to them, just you reaching out, connecting, continuing to maintain that relationship is really important. Because when someone in their circle or they hear of something, you will always be top of mind. So I think that's something in this season to really lean into. Is maybe it isn't about so much as like trying to get people at the top of the funnel. It's maybe focusing on how can we get the people who have already paid us, who have already loved and raved about our work, how can we get them to be advocates? How can we get them to help us continue to make money in our businesses?
Love that. Co-sign all of that. And those little personal touches go so far. My inbox has gotten just not great over the last few months. And just to move through things faster, I started recording email responses as Loom videos. Like I will literally just do a Loom video over my inbox, respond to them, copy that as a linked GIF in the email and send it to them. It saves me time. It's easier for me to go more in depth vocally than to try to put it all together in written thought. And it's created such affinity with people that I communicate with. They love it. They love it. And it's actually easier for me. So those little touches, those little personal touches that you can do, however you do it, just really stand out and go a long way.
Yeah, I love that. Are there any examples of that for you too? Like, are there certain things that you have noticed work really well to cultivate that affinity and sentiment amongst people that you've worked with, or something that people, really surprise and delights them that you see maybe other brands doing that you work with that works really well?
Yeah, I am big on like just sending little notes, little cards, or voice notes, like Jay was saying, like the videos. Those are, for me, I find that people really care, like love that you took the little time. Like I always have like pre-stamped little cards in my drawer. And when I think of a client, I pull one out and I write them a little note. Was just thinking about you, and sending them a little something along the way with that. It doesn't take too much of my time to do that. It's not like I'm not like inconveniencing myself to do that, but it is such a huge thing when they get it in the mail, or when I send them like a voice message on Instagram or through email saying like, hey, I was just thinking about you and saw this thing and it reminded me of this, like, how's that going, or whatever the case may be. Those little things go such a long way, because people just want to know that it wasn't just a transaction, it was that you thought of them as a human being and like you see them as that. And just little things like that, it can just be an email, even if that's like what's easiest for you to say like, hey, was just thinking of you, how are you doing? Little things like that make people realize that, oh, this person thinks of me as a human, sees me as a human, and it wasn't just like a transaction for them. Those little things I've seen work really well. I have clients who send like gift baskets out on their clients' birthdays or things like that that are a little bit more elaborate, but I've always found the little touches of things where you're just sending like a quick little voice note or a card or a postcard, whatever, those things go so far. They really do.
All right, as we come up on the top of the hour, I would love for both of you to leave our audience with sort of one final bit of advice. We are entering 2H, is what we call it at HoneyBook and Rising Tide, the second half of the year. Prior to this, I thought of life in quarters, and now we've kind of decided we're doing halves instead. And things feel a little uncertain for 2H, I think, across the board. As many of you all know, with everything that kind of unfolded in March, I can imagine on the community side, our entire strategy for 2020 was thrown out the window, and it became one focus and one focus only, and that was saving and protecting small business, period. As we all look to 2H, we all in business are trying to figure out, okay, second half of 2020, I've got to continue selling, booking, and running this business efficiently amidst all this uncertainty. You could leave everybody with that one bit of advice, maybe something that you're doing in your business, or just something to kind of leave them with what lies ahead. What would that bit of advice be as we close out today's webinar?
I'll go first. I think for me, what's been really important, especially as someone who is in the trenches helping people build their brands, and we've seen we're going through a global pandemic, we're going through a civil rights movement. I think what has been really, really, really critical is that your values show up in the way that you sell and market your business moving forward, period. I think we're seeing so much of that is misaligned. And so that's why probably selling feels so like, because you're like, ooh, that doesn't feel right. And you see something that doesn't feel right. I think it's really important that as you think about how you're going to pivot your sales strategy, as you think about how you are going to show up for your customers and your clients and the ways that you're going to serve them and the offerings that you're going to have moving forward, it's really, really important to come back to, hey, are my values and what I've learned so far in the first half of the year, how is that going to translate into how I sell? How is that going to translate into how I market my business? And then really just spending a ton of time listening to your customers in the next season, I think is going to be really important. This is the time to be getting on calls with customers and previous clients and really just talking about what is it that you need? How can I show up for you? How can I show up for this community in the next, in the next half 2H, as Natalie called it, and really asking, because I think that's going to be critical in how you can continue to serve people and sell things and make money in your business, is asking those very people, how can I show up for you moving forward? What are the things that you're anticipating you might need? I think are really important for sales moving forward, I think.
Love that. I used to work out at a co-working space or coffee shops a lot. And sometimes I would avoid going to those spaces because I just knew that I was going to get distracted by all the people there that I knew and that I liked, that I wanted to talk to. And every time I did it anyway, I would leave saying, well, thank God I went today, because this conversation happened and now this thing is happening because of it. And that type of serendipity was so easy to have happen in a world where we were going out and about all the time and there were a lot of events. And we probably still won't have much of that in H2. So I would say really make it a priority to increase your tempo on communication with people that are close to you, people in your just like overall digital sphere, because half the battle is just being top of mind when something comes up as an opportunity. And so if you are proactively communicating with your advocates and having conversations with people you have close relationships with, and showing up and showing up with positivity in your social channels and showing some of the unique work you're doing for yourself or for your clients, that'll help you stay top of mind and stand out. Because a lot of times people would reach out to you because they just saw you at an event last week and you were top of mind, and you got to find a new way to do that in a digital world.
Amazing. This was incredible. Thank you both so much for joining us. But before we conclude, could you let the audience know where to find you and how they can continue to connect with you beyond the scope of today's event?
Well, Kate just put a lot of it in the chat. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing because she's Kate Master. She's on it.
Any of those places is perfect. I'm on Instagram or Twitter at jclouse, and my website, jclouse.com, links off to all the things that I do. And I'm really leaning into community in this season as well. And that's digital community. That's all forms of community. So you can find me there. It's easy to connect.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. You're the best. You guys can find me on Instagram at Danait Behre. Usually all of my shenanigans are on there. And my website, theazmaragency.com, which will lead you to all of the things. And yes, please come connect, say hi, and hang out. We love that.
Amazing. We'll also add that at my website, I have a free email-based course about earning more money as a freelancer. So if you want to level up over the next 5 days, there you go.
Awesome.
Love that.
Amazing. And Danait, is there anything we can download from you, or anything that you're upcoming maybe want to drop a preview of? I don't know.
I have an incubator process that is coming so soon, and it is just like my dream way to work with clients, where we're just going to workshop together in a 3-day incubator process and build out brand strategies that actually help you make sales, convert, make impact, all the good things. So I'm super excited to be launching that super soon. So stay tuned.
That's amazing. I might have to sign up for that myself. That sounds incredible. Both of you, thank you so much, Jay and Danait, and everyone for joining us. Thank you. And we will see you again on a Global Tuesdays Together next month. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.